would say I want combats within combats. The intrigue. No, just kidding.
Anyway, hi Lannister, welcome to the podcast. Some background to this. We have done it before, but after that hour of talking, I realized that I didn't hit the record button. So here we are. So hi Lannister, welcome back to the podcast once again.
Glad to be back. It feels like the first time.
Would you like to introduce yourself?
Yeah, I'm Lannister. I've been playing Immortality a large number of times. I've got about 1,080 games at this point. About 150 are in emo. I juiced up a lot on emo there. So, yeah.
Cool. Is Dune Imperium your favorite or first board game?
Yeah, for sure. It's definitely my favorite board game. I just like how dynamic it is and how easy it is to get the strategy side going, but not taking too long as a board game too. Like a lot of great strategy-based board games usually take in excess of 2 hours. This can be done in an hour, so you can get a ton of games in a short period of time.
Yeah, I think for a game that lasts like 1 hour, if people are playing fast, and I think with your game group in particular, like 1 hour is definitely fine. 1 hour you can have a full range of experiences. Your setup to the payoffs, each game tells its own story. It's Dune Imperium's an exciting game.
I will say the most enjoyable game I've ever had still was with Papa G, Zan, and Badger. We put 1 minute clocks on each other, and we finished the game in about 25 to 30 minutes, even though we hit the 9th conflict.
Wow, that's insane. I'm not sure if I can do it. I'm quite a thinker. Okay, but anyway, let's get to this game. I think we played this game at this point maybe slightly over 2 weeks ago. So Lannister and I in the game. So let's just start the game and see where we end up. I think we shuffle the positions, and after setup, I end up in position. Okay, I didn't set hidden picks. So I think we reset it, and I end up in position 2 after this. Do you remember this game?
I remember briefly. The rewind ended up happening, and I believe the shuffle was disabled or non-functional. That's how I recall it anyway.
Yeah, I think when we reloaded mod, I don't know if we... Or maybe we just didn't bother to click it again. Yeah. So first thing we'll do, let's just study this this Imperium roll, the text, and the Twilight Zoo cards. Do you... How much of an influence do these things make into your leader pick?
0. The reason because that row doesn't matter at all. You can just bomb it.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter. I mean, the only time it actually matters, in my opinion, is if it's TM over there and you're doing insta reveal.
Yeah. So I think So one thing about Immortality is that the Imperium row doesn't matter as much when you're picking leaders. You're picking leaders more for position. I think there's one specific case where you don't, where you care about what leader you pick, and that is when a 3-costed Twilight Zoo roll card reveals itself. So then you have the option to go to research station to grab it before everyone else. So I think that's the only situation where you kind of think about additionally, but the Imperium row doesn't matter as much. It disappears so fast.
For sure. I 100% agree. That's one of the meta strats that me and Doom came up with, is just gun for the research station when there's a 3-cost T-Lax card out there. And I think it had a great effect in the beginning of the meta. It's obviously shifted a little bit since then, but it was a great starter, I believe.
Yeah. I think also people figured out like what of the 3-coster cards are worth doing it for. And it's not obvious. So I made the mistake of drawing my cards earlier. I asked the table if it's okay if I just keep my hand Because I mean, when you play Baron, most of the time you're just picking the same things, so everyone making mistakes. The combat is faction bum. I can't remember what I do, but I'm playing Baron in the
Should be Party Warriors, I believe.
probably, yeah. So I'm playing Baron in the second
You're
position.
like
Yeah.
you're like running double daggers. I'm pretty sure it has to be Hardy Warriors.
Yeah, yeah. So I don't want bees to come and sneak in the win. If I want anyone to win or anyone to get full space, I want red and green to get full space. So that's my thinking with regards to this. So one thing I know is that you pick ECAS in this row, and I think you love the strategy of picking ECAS when artillery is in the row.
Yep, absolutely. It's a really strong strategy when the VP combats come out. It has a lot of high win percentage in terms of that. So, yeah, I love artillery cast. It's one of the most fun builds. Not so fun for the people who like combat.
Do you keep track of your stats, like in terms of like leaders and what techs you buy, and
Yeah.
how detailed are your stats?
They're pretty detailed. Right now, with ECAS artillery, it's at a 60-70%, 67% win rate.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've seen you use it before, and I was really impressed, and I always want to try it, but
Yeah.
I think artillery is one of the techs I just don't see very often, or I just never get to play with. But it's one of my favorite techs.
Yeah, it's just so dynamic, and at the later stage when you're fully developed, you can hit the axis points and barely touch combat, and it's enough to win the combat a lot of the times.
Yeah.
You only have to watch out for stuff like double cross or whatever. So
Yeah. Okay. So I actually don't play any other card. The one reason I do this is I want to try Organ Merchants. I haven't tried this card. And I think my rating on it is that it is okay, not amazing, but in terms of Baron strategy, right? And let's talk about Baron slightly a bit after this. Is that with Baron, I think early on you want to get the spacing friendship, and after the spacing friendship, the thing you want to get is Swordmaster. I think that's the best way to convert his advantage into his interstellar shipping advantage into another tangible advantage. So Organ Merchant gives you another out to do that.
Yep.
Yeah.
To be honest, I don't have a very high opinion of that card myself. So
yeah. We'll see how this card plays out. I mean, all I want to do is get Swordmaster turn 3, and I'm just thinking about that. Okay, so if you follow the stats for the round of 14, right, Baron has like insane win rate. I think he wins like 50% of his games, and he qualifies for like 70% of the games that he has played. And in the 14 games, he appeared 10 times. So I think he qualified like 7 or 8 times.
Because it's different when you can get through on top 2 and sometimes on third. I mean, Baron absolutely dominates in that aspect. Like, even if you get in front of him and you beat him out, his VPs are generally strong enough to get him to at least second or third.
Yeah, and his VPs also come in very early in the game, right?
Yeah, for sure. So even if someone else interrupts his flow, he's gotten 7, 8 easy by the end of it. So
yeah. I think this as compared to Tessia, you need to like the game to drag out a little bit so that you can get all your false snoopers to get your advantage. Like, so in the long run, Tessia's one might be better, but in the short term, Baron gets all his advantages, and with the games ending faster, maybe he qualified through. But I think the interesting thing to note is that his win rate was very different from the round of 14 to the group stages. I think group stages he had like a 24% win rate, and then
Yep.
Do you think there's any reason why this happens?
It's because in the round of 14, you are inspired to aim for second. So in the group stages, you want to get first place as often as possible, and so you're gunning for it, and you're failing as Baron because people are sometimes stepping in to stop you. But in the round of 14, you just need to get first or second. So sometimes you don't want to waste your action stopping Baron, and you just go do your own thing. So, that's kind of how I got eliminated in my match. Spoiler alert there. So it was pretty gruesome, just having two people sideline themselves, and then me and the other guy fighting over each other. It was
Yeah, so in a meta that favors top two, what happens is that people don't challenge each other. Is that correct?
Yep, that is 100% correct.
Yeah. So in a meta where only first player matters, like people start to challenge and put pressure on the player in the lead.
Yep, because they have incentive to do so. They are rewarded for doing so. Like first place in group stages is 5 points for first and 3 points for second. So you're given a substantial reward for taking these type of risks. But if the reward for first and second is exactly the same, why bother taking that risk, right?
Yeah. So I find it a bit interesting also because our tournament has like different structures throughout the entire of it. Like you have a 4-player stage where position matters. Then after that you have a 3-player stage where only first matters. Then you have a round of 14 where top 2 matters. Then after you start to have knockouts where you kind of won first place all over again. Okay, but I think I think it's good for getting new players into the game. I think it lets some players play more games than what normal knockout structure will do. Okay, so things to So let's talk about the game shortly. It was round 2. You won your first combat. Your artillery gave you 4 extra daggers. I'm not sure how much everyone has. At this point in time, I have interstellar access. I went there once already, and I'm quite near the alliance. So there are multiple paths at which I can get the 8 Solari I need for Swordmaster, and the only other player who has Swordmaster is yellow.
See, in the previous round, I acquired Worm Riders, even though I don't have access to level 2 Fremen. It's mainly to get the spice. Spice I'll use for a variety of things, selective breeding and whatnot. So that's the reason for the acquisition, even though I don't have the swords necessarily on hand.
One thing I find hard to evaluate in Dune is the value of spice. How do you evaluate the value of spice?
I evaluate spice in the context of 2 spice for 5 Solari as a conversion. Now, why that specific is because I like to compare it to the Spice Trader card, for example. So that is more of a benchmark for myself and things that I can achieve with that 2 spice. I like 2 spice a lot because it allows me to cut the cards and get me more daggers in the moments that I need it, or it can get me the purchasing power that I need for more daggers. So it's more of a flexibility in terms of that end. Now you're probably thinking, well, shouldn't it be more like 4 spice for 5 Solari? It's like, not really, because in the Conspire area you get 2 troops, intrigue, and 5 Solari. So I think 2 spice, 5 Solari is a little bit more appropriate in that context.
I think that's quite similar to the base game, right? Base game, I think 2 spice gets you maybe more Solari, maybe like 7 Solari, but it takes an action, right? So I think if you minus away the action, it should be around that conversion. The issue I have with spice, right, is that I do not know the value of spice as a conversion to like points.
It's just too flexible in that aspect. Like, 6 spice can mean a VP and 2 water, and that translates to other things, or text. It's just really flexible. Unfortunately, there's no concrete way to divide it up.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, you just have to go by gut.
Yeah, do you know how I view spice? Let me share my approach to spice. My approach to spice, right, is that if there's a +2 bonus, I want to take it. Right, and I think that's a good value of my investment. But I don't really know like what exactly the spice is gonna do. I just know that if I take this spice, eventually it'll turn into something good.
I agree with you though, too. That's the threshold.
Yeah,
That's definitely
that's the entire threshold. You don't really know what you're doing with the spice, but okay, I have spice. Spice does good things, you know. I'll see what I'll do with the spice later.
yeah, that's for sure.
Yeah. This combat comes around. I think I want to put in troops, but I want to play my faction. I want to play full space to a faction access spot more. So I go to secrets.
This part I don't remember. Why did Midas commit so much? Did he just negotiate withdrawal or stage incident?
Yeah, I think Midas, yeah, Midas and Pawns both have negotiated withdrawal this game. This entire game, both of them are like just withdrawing troops. You know, putting them in, withdrawing them, putting them in, withdrawing them. Yeah.
That's fine with me. I mean, I can withdraw, but the damage is already done with that singular troop in artillery. Honestly, guys, artillery build is so fun.
Yeah,
You don't need quality cards either.
yeah. I think that's the best part. You can pick up like random cards and you still feel good about it.
I
Yeah.
remember the first time I played. I think it was the Black Shadow. He's like, "What are you doing? You're getting starter card infantry." It's like, "It's not a starter card infantry. That's a master tactician in your hand because it's 3 swords." yeah.
Yeah. So Beast does something this round that I think we that discussed and we strongly disagree with. So he has a faction bump from negotiated withdrawal and he gets one from combat as well. He could easily take the spacing friendship, but he chooses an alliance instead. This, I mean, you can understand it from his point of view. It powers up his ring, but he doesn't block interstellar shipping, which I think is
Yep.
the more important thing.
Yep. Especially since he's the one who has the direct job to stop you from
Ye-
going to shipping.
Yeah. And because of that, I think you can see what happens when you give a Baron interstellar shipping this game.
For sure. Get wrecked.
I never know what happens in Dune. I think sometimes when the games drag long, even though you give someone interstellar shipping, anything can really happen. But in this particular game, you realize that I think this is round 4. We had a combat. We had a combat point round 2, but for rounds 1, 3, and 4, we have no victory points. So let's talk about that slightly. So I think being someone who loves to play combat builds or to go into combats, how do you feel about this combat deck not having a stable amount of like combat VPs or having the rewards being quite random and sporadic?
The thing is, I obviously don't like it when it's a drought of combat VPs, but generally speaking, there should be enough to get you to the round 7 victory. This being the outlier, because pretty much it's outside of the first one, there was almost no VPs from my understanding. But
Yeah.
it tends to happen that way. I mean, that's the inconsistency of combat, unfortunately, and I think that's why that meta exists for faction meta. Like a lot of people prefer just to dabble a little combat and go heavy into track chasing / spice must flow, and that's because it's more controllable on that aspect and it's more consistent. But from my perspective, combat is a lot more enjoyable because it's one of the most interactive parts of the game, and I think that's what I love about it: the interaction between, that push and pull between that other person in combat.
Hmm. So, how do you approach a combat round? Like, let's say when you open up your 5 cards in your hand, and you see the combat, right? Let's say you see this Solari combat. How do you approach it? Do you tell yourself like, okay, I want to win this combat, or do you tell yourself that, I'm gonna try to get some rewards, or do you tell yourself, can I win?
If
Can I beat someone else at this position?
So in general, you should know whether you can beat the person regardless. So
Is this at the start
if
of the round or at the end of the round?
at the start of the round, you should already
Okay.
have a pretty solid understanding. The reason I say this is at the start of the round, you know what resources you have. and you should have a general idea of what kind of access those guys have as well. Um, in general, people might have like two diplomacy-based type of cards,
Mm-hmm.
and if they're going into combat, it's not like they're always going to go to Highliner or whatever. It's usually one of two. It's Hardy Warriors or Carthag, and those are the two top premier options for combat, unless you're running a Fremen cap in your deck. So that kind of makes things more predictable. Um, for me, the reason why it's easier to do combat is because I have a pretty solid memory base. So a lot of the times I have a pretty good understanding of how many swords, the potential that people have because of what they've bought, what they've cut out of their deck, and to me, that's the most interactive part of this game is just recognizing that information and kind of bullying them. Obviously, I can't account for intrigue potentials, but I think that's what people love about it is that RNG factor as well.
Okay, so I mean, you plan in a manner which you can, if you can beat other people, but do you plan like um to beat them assuming they have combat intrigues, or do you assume like they don't have combat intrigues, or like what is the general approach?
My general approach is there is roughly 1 in 5 cards as a combat card, averaging out to I think about 2.5 to 3 swords per combat card. So in general, I'll assume that if you have three cards in hand, that one of them is a combat card. But if you only have one, I'll gamble all the time. I'll gamble all the time. If it's two, my chances are still pretty solid that you're not having a combat card. It's a little bit under 50%. So I'll go with that any day.
Oh wow, I never knew the statistics. So it's about 1 in 5.
Yep. So 2 in 5 chance if it's two cards essentially. So I'm feeling pretty happy about that.
Yeah. I think I'll feel quite happy about that as well.
Yeah.
I think sometimes when I approach combat, I take a slightly different approach with regards to combat. I think combat sometimes is like it's a show of resources, right? It's whoever kind of puts in more resources into that combat kind of wins. As such, you don't really end up having, at least in my playstyle, I don't really end up having a combat deck. It just like kind of happens to be okay. I have a lot of resources, and I can commit all these resources to bid for these. Let's say if it's a tier 3 combat, these 2 points, right?
I think
And
if you watch the way I play,
yeah,
a lot of the times I build up resources over time on the secondary combats such as this, and I am prepared enough in tier 3 conflicts that I'm usually the only person who is able to recover for 3 consecutive tier 3 conflicts if it gets to that.
But how do you? I think the issue I have with this is how do you manage your troops? How do you get enough troops to kind of sustain this? Right, because like you have one player who's currently banking up a garrison. They can deploy 3 times. Each time, maybe they deploy 3 troops. Maybe they deploy 8 troops total. Like, how are you fighting against that?
How I've managed that is two factors. The first factor is the Imperial Alliance. That one is one that helps you out substantially near the end of the game. It gives you that fresh supply of the 2 troops. It's not to be scoffed at, especially if you hit shipping. That's 4 troops that you get there. So my first conflict often doesn't need the Imperial Bump Alliance to take the win. The second one, I'll get the Imperial Alliance to give me the reinforcements, and then the ship down to give me another 2. So generally that's 5-6 troops I can do there, on top of maybe a Hardy Warriors in the middle of the round. And the last conflict is generally everyone spent all their available resources, but for me, as usually a Rhombur player or an ECAS player, I have leftover resources from stuff like training drones or flagship or my artillery, pulls ahead with all that other stuff. And having been put with cards that put in additional troops like Gurney Halleck and Sardaukar Legion, those opportunities I give up for Spice Must Flow is supplemented by the extra troops that my cards deliver to me. So that's my trade-off. I lose my Spice Must Flow opportunities, but I get more reinforcements from my cards as a result of that sacrifice.
So one thing that I think is very curious, right, is that if you read a lot of forums or if you talk to people who do not play on TTS Club, the current understanding of the game is that Rhombur is S tier. You know, Rhombur wins a lot of home games. Do you ever get that feedback?
No, not at all. Most people know him as a bad character. Even I know he's a bad character. He's really high skill ceiling. A lot of the times he needs to, you need to plan out your turn to get second or third place in combat to lead yourself up to another position. So like it's much more difficult than other characters like the Beast who repeatedly just keep slamming Hardy Warriors, for example.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's a lot more sophisticated in that sense and much easier to block Rhombur than it is to block Beast, for example. So I would highly disagree. I think I can't say for sure for the BGA forums, but when the tabletop community started to shine to Rhombur was because in the ranked volume his stats were elevated from me and Link spamming the crap out of it. So that's how it became so popular.
Link was playing Rhombur as well?
Yeah, actually Link has a better win percentage than me, but he has far fewer games. I think he was something like 65% win rate with 20 games, something like that.
65?
And I was, yeah. So he had won 13 out of 20 games or something to that effect.
With Rhombur? Well, that's really impressive.
Yep.
That's really impressive.
Really impressive. And he's not playing against chumps either. He's like playing against like top tier people like Doom and
yeah.
Like he's playing with regulars. I was sitting somewhere around 54, 55%. Yeah.
Okay.
I think I was around 100 games with him at the time. Yeah.
Man, if we could get some rank stats in, it would be great. I think it would be great for stats collection. Not so sure how great it will be for the community to have to deal with a little bit of all that stuff, but in terms of stats, it will be good.
So in this play, I do a little flexing. I push out yellow from combat, the reinforcements from the intrigue, and using the Desert Ambush. Desert Ambush, in my opinion, is one of the strongest cards in Immortality. It has so much flexibility because of graph cards, and there's tech that also supplemented as well. So as you can see there, I just pushed out 4 troops, did some good damage to them, pretty much eliminated Beast from combat altogether.
Yeah, I've heard of like Highliner, Desert Ambush combos. I've not faced it myself, but
I actually taunted them a little bit here because I knew they both had negotiated withdrawal, and I pushed out just enough so that they both couldn't get the negotiated withdrawal bonus from it.
That's great. So anyway, coming back to Rhombur, right? So my own suspicion of this, right, is that in home games, players aren't buying as much Spice Must Flows. Reasoning is that they are not buying 2 position cards as high a clip that I think we buy on our Discord. So as such, right, because the game drags longer, Rhombur becomes more powerful because they get a lot of because they like late game combats and they like getting dreadnoughts early, which dreadnoughts, the longer the game goes, are better as well. That's my own theory with regards to that.
Yeah, for sure. I think so as well. I mean, Spice Must Flow strategy is often a matter of the correct amount of persuasion and the correct amount of deck size there. I think that's a refined art that I need to work on personally. I think that's for me the harder part is just relying on that consistency, and that's why I prefer combat because I I know I can generate that consistency, but I cannot generate that consistency with a spice and slow strategy just because once I start buying those spice and slows, I don't feel like I can, avoid them to, miss
Yeah.
the spice at the opportune moment. So usually you'll see I'll get one, maybe two, and that's it. Like I'm not like you pros who can nail three at the drop of a dime.
Yeah. So I think that for um combat, I mean, we're talking about Dune meta, right? I think it sways back and forth quite a fair bit. I think, I think if you did not talk about combat as much, or you did not talk about it in Aussie's podcast, I think the more players would be geared towards spice plus flows, and actually being the only one going combat would actually assist you quite a fair bit.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
agree. When I think my stats increased substantially because I was playing against people who are spice most flow based. So um, I tend to do better against people who are spice most flow based as well. So um, speaking of stats, I actually have some stats of personal rivalries of other people.
Wow.
So I can give you some stats here. So for example, um, I have two different stats. Stats where I do better in position. So, for example, I might lose the game, but I'll get second and you'll
Okay.
get third. So, in that instance, I have a percentage for that. So, for patience is virtue. I have an 86% win rate against him. So, I'll do better in position than him. And my win percentage is about 47% while he is present.
Okay.
And then conversely, I have someone called Lonk, who actively comes at me.
Yep.
I have a 52% win rate against him, so I only fare better 2% time.
Yep.
But in comparison, my win rate is only 21% while he is present at the table.
Oh.
Yeah. So like the average is supposed to be about 25%, right? But he like absolutely like craps all over me. Like,
Oh, he destroys both your games.
yep, he does. He does. And
Yeah.
if you'd like, I can let you know your stats too.
You have my stats? Okay, sure. I would like to hear them.
So this is emo and X included. It's
Yeah.
55% in my favor,
Okay.
and while you're present, I win 35% of it.
Cool.
Yeah.
55% in your favor.
So it's only about a 10% difference or so, but I win about 35% of the time while it's
Nice.
there. Yep.
Nice.
Me
Yeah.
and Badger are very close. We're neck and neck, 52 and 26.
Do you know how many games this is?
I don't have that on hand right now, but it's
Okay.
under 50 for sure.
No, like between two of us.
Yeah, under 50 for sure.
Under 50. We have played so many
Yeah.
games together.
Yep.
Wow. Okay, I think that sounds about right. I think we take games off each other fairly often. I think if both of us are in a game and if with randoms, most of the time either of us will win. Uh, So one
Definitely
thing,
whoop my butt this time.
yeah. This game is not telling. This game is a game where I think if you watch it, you should understand this. What happens when you give someone interstellar conspiracy, interstellar shipping for free, and what happens when Baron is in second position. This is just how you should watch this game. And I think from Lannister's perspective, this is a game where we are in round 6 and we only have one victory point combat that he has won.
And the other thing is I'm dealing with two other people who are more combat based. Like even Paul is combat based in this position, so
Yeah,
it's a lot of dogs at the same.
yeah.
feeding bowl.
You can tell that by Beast is already at the almost at the top of the Fremen influence, and I think that's quite telling on how much you're invested into combat.
But yeah, it was definitely a rough game for us. I had to police them with their negotiated withdrawals while still dealing with you. It was tough.
Yeah. So I think so actually the reason why we picked this game, we probably should have played another and then chose this. This video was supposed to come out at the same time that the Baron Guide came out. So but that's been a while. So one reason I think, let's talk about stats. So one reason why I stopped tracking my own stats is that my stats I felt were not very indicative of the overall like Dune as a whole. And the reason I say that is because okay, it's not to brag, but I do think that my win rate is significantly higher than most players. So in the end, the win rate of what leader is good becomes down to who plays it. It's a little bit of why for the rank stats, right? Rhombur's win rate was so high. It's just that you had these two players who were just spamming Rhombur over and over again, right? And then suddenly the win rate balloons to I think it was almost 50, maybe high 40%.
Yeah, it was something like 48%
right?
win rate.
Yeah, I think when they were looking at the stats of it, it was like, it's like insane, you know.
And it was actually like a good number of games too, because I think I had about 120 or 130 games myself. And just to put this into perspective, me at 130 games was the top games played. The second person below me was Heretic, sitting at about 40 or 50 games.
Yeah, in terms of the ranked games, right?
Yeah, number of ranked games played.
Yeah, I think I played like 2 ranked games.
So yeah, we definitely condensed the Rhombur games so that it would count for as much percentage as possible. So
yeah, actually this tournament I wanted to just keep playing Alicia because I kind of want to like show like that Alicia is actually viable, but I only got the option to pick her once in my 5 games.
I had 4 opportunities and I took 3 of them. I admittedly shied away on one of them because the techs were really expensive on that one, like 665. I was just like, yeah, that's too much for me. I need at least one cheap tech out there for Rhombur, but yeah, I tried my best to stay true to them.
Yeah. Well, Rhombur's win rate did increase after the round of 14. I think.
Yeah, I was actually very impressed. I think last tournament there was a single Rhombur win in the last tournament, as I recall, but there's at least a good somewhere like 8 to 10 wins for Rhombur at least.
Do you think for X? Do you think everything has been figured out already, or do you think new things will be figured out for X?
I think new things will always be figured out. Just it takes courage to do so. Like for me personally, like I feel I shifted the dynamic for Rhombur because I was willing to take the losses. Like when I entered into Emo, I was bottom 2 ranked because I kept trying new things, and I didn't mind losing. I was just trying new things just to see if I could make something different.
Yeah, I love that stage of playing a board game, that you're just like discovering things or learning new things or figuring stuff out. Like you start to realize, okay, this is not good in this position. Oh, this is good, and like you have to comb through a lot of dirt, so a lot of bad games and a lot of bad situations. But eventually you'll find like these 1-2 scenarios where like, oh, this I have found like a diamond in the rough, like, and I really like that whole journey.
And I like it the way you like it as well, because ranked you get some serious matches there, and that's the best time to practice, because if you're practicing something and someone's practicing their own thing, it's just it doesn't work that way. You need some serious players with serious competition, and they care about what's going on. That's when your research is coming to fruition. So I love ranked for that reason.
Okay, maybe I'll go and take a look at this rank worm and see whether I can reboot it.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it too.
Yeah. Okay, so let's take a good look at the game state. I don't think we talk much about this game, except there were no points on the board. So this combat, I think you win, and you get to detonate your dreadnought, so you give yourself a victory point.
Yeah, I had to make my own victory points. How sad it was.
Yeah, and but if you look at the game state,
You earned your own victory point effortlessly.
Yeah, I think me and Beast look. Actually, me, Beast, Paul actually still look quite close at the moment. Uh,
Yeah, because they have negotiated so they can get their half bumps
yeah.
easily. Which is why I got jealous and started kicking them out when I could.
Yeah. I can't remember what I was doing.
I remember at some point you acquired Talaxu Master, and drawing more cards even became easier for you while you had your mem quarters.
I think I had one Twilight Master, if I recall. I used it once, if I recall correctly, but okay, never mind.
Once was all you needed for that turn, right? You ended it around turn 6, turn 7 as a result.
This game, 7 maybe 8. I can't remember. I think 7. See, round 7.
And of course, it's combat. It's great combat. Oh god.
So round 7 comes around and it's not even a victory point combat.
Yep.
Oh.
Sad days for combat. Actually, one other reason why I love combat so much is because I love policing the table. I despise whenever I don't go combat. Combat goes for cheap, like 1 or 2 cubes in. I'm like, I really hate that.
Why can't you be the one who gets it for 1 or 2 cubes?
I think there's a dynamic in the community where I have to be stopped, and maybe I'm just full of myself on that end, but I find that I get targeted a lot in a lot of situations.
Yeah, I think ever since I've been doing YouTube, like I felt that a little bit more. I think before that, not as much. Before that, I'll just like kind of weasel my way through. Now I'll get aggressively stopped by, like, people will go to Wealth to block me. People will yeah, just like fight me for alliances when I'm not in the lead.
Yeah, that's definitely true. I mean, I've had many circumstances where I was suspicious of it, and I called it out. It's like, hey, is this because you wanted to do it, or is it because of me? And a lot of times they'll admit it's because of me, type of thing. So I'm just like, So there's this kind of like meme going on where, got to cuck Lanny no matter what, type of thing. So it just becomes that dynamic that I get used to. But it's definitely challenging when people have a choice between you and another person, and it generally comes down to you. So you have to get used to player intent a lot.
Yeah, I think it's one of the reasons it happens is that, I mean, we are slightly more prominent figures in the community. Yeah, but we don't like it. Stop doing it to us.
Yeah.
We
we want an equal chance at winning, right?
Yeah, but we can. I mean, sometimes I can understand, like, yeah. Today I play.
That's why.
Today I played a game with Felk Death, and he, in one of the combats, he played 3 swords intrigue to tie me for first place. He was going to get second either way, but he just tied me for second place. That's him. Is that really?
Felk Death is always like that. He always does that kind of stuff.
Yeah. But I guess, spoiler, I won the game, so I guess
That's the right move after all. That.
Yeah, it was the right move.
Yep. Actually, Falkdev has my number in this. Let me see if I can pull out his stats. He has 56% win rate over me right now.
Yeah. So actually, Falkdev is a very strong player. When I looked at the group stages, I looked at his name and I was like, okay, no, this group will be tough because he's in it. Before we played our first game together, he won 2 of them, and then after we played our 2 games, he kind of dropped to 3rd place. I think it's and then after he has to play the 3-player games, and 3-player games are just very different and a bit more wild. So I'm a bit sad that he's not in the current tournament. He's really very good, and I don't think some of these players have showcased all their capability.
For sure. I mean, like, look at Q32. He's just as good. He was previous finalist for the previous tournament. When we were in the group of death together, it was just we were how should I say this? We were at odds with one another by coincidence. So a lot of the times he would be pushing me to 4th, and I'd be pushing him back to 4th. So there's a lot of seesaw battle there. A lot of my results came in at the expense of him, and that kind of led to him being outed. So it was unfortunate because I know he's definitely an amazing player. And the last tournament around, he eliminated me. So
yeah, I think this is a shout out to Q as well. You're a very good player. I don't think this tournament is also indicative of how good you are. Like every time I play against you, there's a certain type of pressure that comes from you, and I only get that from good players.
For sure. That's definitely one of the players. I think that's one of the most dangerous things about Q is he's willing to challenge you, and I think that's to our detriment as well because Q and I are the type of people who just don't like to sit by and you know get an easy win. We prefer to chase people down and win the hard way around. Just I think it gives us that satisfaction to
Yeah,
earn our way.
I think you always you kind of play for first. I think in the game, in my round of 14 game, I also got knocked out. When I think back upon it, right, I played in that manner because I was playing for first. If on hindsight, so some background to my round of 14 game. It was played at my 1 a.m. I think 1 a.m. local time for me, which might not seem late to y'all, but actually I wake up around 4 a.m. and the night before I actually woke up at 3 a.m. It's just because I sleep early and because I have a young kid and I wake up early to do YouTube to play my games before the day starts. So I was up for 22 hours, 21 hours. Okay, at that point, then the game lasts around 2 hours, right? So I'm super tired, and then of it, I think I'm still playing for the win. And because it was so late, I drank a cup of coffee, and after the game, I couldn't sleep, so I was just lying in my bed there, thinking what should I have done? No, I just rethinking the entire game because I drank coffee and I cannot sleep, and then just painfully thinking about this loss. And I think if I played for second, I probably would have got there. But I think I played for first. I probably thought to myself that I need the game to last another round for me to win this game. Whereas I should have thought that this game could end this round and I should get as far ahead as possible. So yeah, I think I would have made that decision correctly if I was a bit more sane. But yeah, it's what it is. And to the people who won my group, good job. I hope you all go far in this tournament. No discredit to you all.
I think in my game, if you observe it, you'll see that I literally had no chance to begin with.
Yeah.
Because it was just a lot of the combats were dictated by the top two players at the time, Baron and the ECAS player, just sitting on the sidelines while me and Helena were duking it out. Yeah. And I thought there would be a separation between when we would advance, but it just so happened that he came into my combat several times, and so it became detrimental to both of us. So yeah. It was apparent to me by turn 4 that I was out of the loop because, first of all, ECAS had Web of Power and other memory, so that's pretty much set in stone. Then Baron with uncontested shipping, that's also set in stone. I tried to get in front of it, but the Helena player was adamant about going into combat at certain points. So I should have been better at learning player intent, so that was on me. But it was a very, very hollow experience on that end for me, just because I've lost before, and I've lost several times before, but to lose in that hollow manner is just very very empty feeling, just because that was the first time I'd known that I'd lose by turn 4. I had no chance at all, and that was a sad fact for me.
Yeah, that sounds painful.
Yep. It was swift though. At least it was swift.
Okay. Maybe we'll take a pause from that, and then we'll just talk about this game slightly. So in the current state of the game, I'm currently at 10 points. I'm currently at around 7, but Red can steal an alliance, can steal the spacing alliance. So I think in this case, y'all decide to give him the combat win.
I remember I could have beat him, and I elect not to extend our chances. Yeah. A lot of good that did.
So if you beat him this combat, the game would end, and you'll get to 6 points. 6 points, yeah. Which will leave you at second place.
6 points, nice.
No, 6 point. No, third place, I guess. Yeah.
So for me, I think this is also one of the things about Immortality is there's more ways to earn large number of points in turn 7. A lot of the times you'll see that people are sitting at 4 points and they think it's safe. You're not safe at 4 points on turn 7 because you get a beetle bump here, you finish off your tracks, that's another 2 points, and then you win the combat, that's another 2 points, and if you're a hybrid build, you can maybe get a Spice Must Flow or Intrigues to get you another point somewhere. So it's actually a lot of variety of ways to get your 6 points in one round.
Okay, so I'm gonna kind of rephrase what you just said. So you brought up an interesting point. So there's a very big threshold. So I think because the game only gets to 10 points, right? Getting the points are actually a very big step. Every time you get a point, it's like 10% closer to winning the game, right? However, in Immortality, right, it feels as though you would take a lot of these steps together very quickly. So come round 6, round 7, someone can at a certain point in time take very small minor steps that will get them 4 points all of a sudden, or like maybe get them 4 or 5 points all of a sudden. And because of that, if other players have not taken that same leap, right, so everyone is kind of waiting for their turn to take that leap, right? If the player ends the game, then you have someone who has a very high number of points, and you have other players who have very low number of points.
Yep. That's because they weren't able to finish off their combos like the way that the other people are. It's just, there's a lot of faction cards that allow you to go to combat while getting the bumps on, like Interstellar Conspirator, or that, that Blue City Access card that gives you 1 spice, and if you have a Spacing Guild and
Emperor,
or an Emperor, it gives you
Interstellar Conspiracy,
that's an example for you for one, just to complete your bumps and stuff. So there's plenty of opportunities to get bumps without actually going to an access point. So yeah, it makes it very easy to get like an additional 4 or 5 points, even while contending in combat and trying to get Spice Must Flows.
But are you liking the Immortality meta?
I enjoy the experimental part of it in terms of like seeing new combinations. I dislike when I'm not able to do anything about it. So, for instance, Smuggler's Thopter, that's draw 2 cards, right?
Yeah.
If you have the 2. So, what do you do when it's paired up with Interstellar Conspirist or Gola, for example? How are you going to block it, even if you know the guy has it, right?
Yeah.
So my strength is in recognizing what people have and being able to step in front of it. But when I recognize it and I can do nothing about it, that's a whole different type of ball game. It's more like an arms race at that point, just like who has the bigger guns.
So blocking becomes more relevant
in Ix
in Ix.
rather than yep, because you can't block all the city's spots or desert locations, right? So they're bound to get their 4 draw.
And this is mainly from grafting, right?
Yep, precisely. So like a lot of the times it'll be just about, do I have the better combo than you? If so, I'll win. If not, then I'll lose. Because there's nothing you can do to stop those additional access points.
There's nothing you can do to stop this.
Because like imagine this, you see Smuggler's Thopter, and you know he'll win if he draws 4 cards. How are you going to stop that? You're going to stop all the desert locations? You're going to stop all the city locations? That's impossible, right?
Yeah. Let me think about it for a moment. Yeah, I'll just talk about my own Immortality experience. I think when I first started playing Immortality, like people didn't know what the hell they were doing. So games started to get very long. The reason they got like 2 hour plus per game. The reason it got long is because people need to figure out these additional mechanics and like aren't really sure like when they take a research bump, they'll like sit down and think for like good 30 seconds, should I go up or down? Right? Or then when they're buying a Twice card, they'll look at the two cards and they'll think about it really, really long. And in addition to that, right, because people were not playing very optimized. I think in X, like, game ends round 7, 70% of the time. Round ends round 8, another 25% of the time, right? Then you have a bunch of outliers, be it round 6 or round 7, 9, 10. So because of that, in Immortality, because people haven't figured their shit out, like it made the games last to round 8, rounds 9. And I think what happens when it goes to round 8, right? If it tends to drag even longer because people start to chase alliances, like start to fight over alliances. And once people start to fight over alliances, that adds a whole round to the game. So then it becomes round 9, round 10. So my first experience with Immortality is that, okay, this is a longer game with longer mechanics and the game lasts even longer, and people are still asking to start this game at 0 VPs. And then it's like, oh gosh, I cannot do 2.5 hours, right? But it has progressed from then to a point where I'm comfortably able to end the game round 7, or find like other players are also able to end the game round 7. One thing, and because of that, because end round 7, then people don't have the time to really chase alliances. Like, you don't really fight over alliances anymore, and so then the game ends kind of round 7. I don't think that the combos come up too often. I see them come up now and then, but I think what I feel about the cards, right? I feel that the Imperium role cards that are good, they have gotten even better, and the cards that got worse, the cards that are bad got even more worse. So the skill has become shifted even more.
I think that's an interesting view on that, because I think that the power creep is so strong that it becomes wildly unpredictable at certain points. Like,
Yeah.
I don't know about yourself, but I've been put in positions where, like, for example, this game, if it was X, I would not be at 5 or 6 points by the end of like this situation normally. So I find that it's quite common in this particular setting, just because timing is everything, and the cards you acquire, their power creep is so substantial in terms of giving you that extra value. Like, TM might give you another bump, might give you another spice with flow, might give you some spice that you need to complete a tech buy, something like that. So, all these like itty bitty pieces put together just like adds up a substantial amount.
So there was some talk on the Discord today about, do you think another expansion will come out? I think Paul Denon actually watches some of these videos. I don't know if he'll stay for the full hour, but if you had anything to suggest, or any ones you want from the next expansion or mini set, or next thing that comes out from Dune Imperium, what would it be?
I would say I want combats within combats. The intrigue. No, just kidding. Right? You get 3 combat wins and you get 2 VP. Come on, right? You gotta be fair to the combat guy.
Yeah. If you get more you get more combat VPs than everyone else, you get 1 VP, and if you get 2 combat VPs, you get 1. I think that's good. That sounds great.
Yeah, sounds fair to me. I mean, plants is completely ridiculous in Immortality. Don't you agree?
Combat within combats, yeah.
Combat within combats. But on a more serious note, I like what I see with the cards. I just think that the grafting has made it too flexible in that sense. So I think for me the biggest thing I want to see is the Emperor base cards having some kind of synergy. So for example, Benny cards typically draw more cards. Fremen cards typically give more swords or spice or something. But I don't know, Emperor could be, Solari synergy or something like that, just to, give some kind of flavor to them. So that's something I'd like to see, just, as a flavor type of thing, and to create new types of synergies.
I think that's quite interesting. Like, I think normally when people like when I hear these type of things, when people talk about like what do you want from new expansion, people talk about leaders, people talk about new sports spaces, to changing things up. I never thought about. Yeah, I never thought about just like improving like the Emperor section of it.
Yeah, because like, don't you feel like that's kind of hollow compared to the others? Like, like the Benny and the Fremen definitely have their own sort of theme going for them, but Facing and the Emperor don't really have their own theme, in my opinion, and I think they should have some kind of synergy bonus.
I think there's an increase of that already in Immortality, but I think
For sure,
it can be
sure.
improved somehow.
Yeah, just a food for thought. I mean,
Yeah.
it's not like anything I'd like, say, oh, if it doesn't show up, I'm not playing. It's just more like, we see some synergies with other factions. I think it'd be interesting for that faction to have their own slice of the pie, in my opinion.
Yeah. It's cool. Anyway, so if we're going to talk about this game slightly, I could have one more point because I realized when I bought Memo Quarters, I didn't take the tech negotiator, so I should have one more spice, but it doesn't matter. What's the difference?
It was a massacre. It wasn't even close. God. I remember at the end of this game, it's like, can we have a rematch? And you just left us.
I think I was probably I was busy. I had to do some work. I had to clean the house. Just pains of married life.
Understandable.
Yeah.
You owe it to us for a rematch, man.
Yeah. No, we definitely definitely kind of rematch, and then we can talk about more stuff. Okay, I think we come to the end of the video. I don't want to really bog us down with Twilight Master or anything. Do you have anything you want to say? I think at the end of this video.
I'd just say that when it comes to Cheesable, he's a great person to learn off of, particularly when it comes to the valuation of things. I think that his evaluation of the cards in terms of the cost is actually quite interesting. A lot of the times, people have their own opinions. I think it's important to note that when I evaluate cards, it's based off combat, and when Cheesable evaluates cards, it's based off of the spice of flow and the persuasion evaluation. So if you ever disagree with his assessment of things, I think you should take that into account, and he definitely has the experience behind him to supplement that, and his record shows for it itself. So, I'd recommend watching those videos. They're actually very insightful, and it actually helped my game as well. So it's just my last piece.
Oh, thanks so much for the kind words. Anyway, so thank Lannister for being with us, and I look forward to playing 1,000 more games with you.
Yeah, absolutely, man. I'll catch you later.
Yeah, see you around.
See ya. Bye.
Bye.